Hello and welcome back to the Jules with Jim podcast. I am your host GiGi and I hope you're doing well. If you're new, welcome. I'm honored to have you here, and if you're returning, I'm humbled to have you back. And to all my new subbies, welcome. You are the VIPs indeed, and thank you so much for the support. I hope you and I can share and learn, as this is a journey and not a destination. So I'm continuing talking about the planets individually because I feel a lot of the time we are given such surface level definitions of the planets. For example, the sun represents individuality and creativity. However, at times we don't even know what that means, or at least I found the definitions to be quite confusing, as there are 12 astrological signs, and the creativity and the individuality would be expressed differently in each of the signs. So a sun in Aquarius would definitely express their individuality and their creativity in a different way to say a sun in Pisces would. And now that we have done the understanding the signs energy series, we can now move on to understanding the planets. So essentially there are 10 planets, namely the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, and Saturn. So in your birth chart, there are 12 houses, 12 rooms, 12 sections. So naturally, there will be houses in your chart that don't have any planets or that are considered empty by astrologers. And it's not that the houses are empty in themselves, it's just that they don't have any planets in them, but they will still have a sign that is ruling that particular house. So you have 12 signs, you have 12 houses. So, immediately you'd know, okay, your first house could be starting from Aries, it could be starting from Taurus, it could be starting from Gemini. It just depends how your chart is mathematically calculated at the time that you were born, where you were born, the longitude and latitude of where you were born, and all those other extra bits and pieces. So I'm here to help you understand that. But the only point that I was trying to make there is that it is it's physically impossible to have all of your houses with planets. You can have asteroids because there's a whole lot more asteroids, but definitely not planets. There are only 10 planets, well, as far as I know, and as far as has been discovered. If you do happen to hear any birds chirping, just enjoy the lovely sound of nature, because I am currently sitting outside. It is 4 minutes past 5 o'clock in the morning, and it is the 25th of October. So we are a day into Scorpio season, which is so awesome. I love Scorpio season. I actually used to dread it, but now that I've actually been doing these series, understanding the energy has become so much easier. Pluto doesn't really have to be as bad as everyone thinks it is. But Saturn, the last planet that I am discussing, and I'm really going to try my best to not be biased, since I have about 4 planets in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. So before I go off on a tangent, because you know me, I always have read and listened to other astrologers and their understanding of what Saturn represents in the birth chart. Of course, there will be similarities due to the fact that, we have to acknowledge the facts. So my understanding of the energy is just that it just makes you think twice before doing anything. Whatever it is that you want to do, whatever thought comes to your mind and you're like, oh my gosh, that's really a cool idea, it's that resounding voice that will always be like, are you sure that's a good idea? Or do you really think you have what it takes? Or do more research, or and then decide after that if it's still something you want to do. So it's not a very impulsive energy such as Aries, who will just think of something and then just immediately do it. It's a very well thought out type of energy. It's a very wise energy. It's a very it's an energy that does not like being embarrassed. So of course it's gonna say, are you sure you want to do that? Have you thought about this? Have you researched well enough? And I think that's where the fear or the limitation aspect of Saturn comes into play, because it is a planet that will make you kind of overthink to the point where you're just like, okay, I'm just not going to do it at all. Like, what is even the point? Because I'm stressing about it already. I haven't even started. So what is the point of even getting started? So, it's just, it's that type of energy really that will just be like, that will just want to ensure that you yourself are sure, so that you don't run the risk of embarrassing yourself. And especially when you're growing up, it's kind of an annoying energy, because when you're growing up and you're a kid and you're under the age of 18, you're not really trying to be thinking too much about your decisions. You're not really trying to be thinking, oh my gosh, should I or shouldn't I go and jump on the trampoline? And then immediately thoughts start flashing through your head like, oh my gosh, I might just hit my head. I don't think it's a good idea. What if somebody, squeezes me on the trampoline? What if somebody jumps on me? And you just start thinking way, way too much, to the point where you're like, okay, I'm just not going to do it at all. So it can really be sort of like a wet blanket energy, whereby you just don't see the enjoyment of anything. Literally, you overthink yourself out of situations that would normally be enjoyable, and you're like, okay, you're just not willing to take the risk. So Saturn is just that planet whereby if you're going to be taking a risk, it really needs to be well thought out. It needs to make sense, and in many ways it definitely needs to be practical. So like I said, it's just that planet that is going to be very wise, and that's just going to make sure that you are doing the right thing. It just wants to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So like I said, we have to think twice before doing something, and I think that's that energy that inhibits you from taking certain risks. It also allows for karma to kind of play out, and brings amazing discernment in later years, because Capricorn is that energy that is malefic. I don't like saying malefic. I actually don't like saying whether planets are good or bad. I just think of planets and their energies as is. And it's just a matter of, just working better with the planet's energies. But I will say that it is a bit of it is an energy that is particularly quite heavy. It's like having a constant strict parent that is like whipping you into shape. Every move of yours is thought out. So people who are ruled by Saturn are the ones that truly go through life, feeling like nothing that they ever do is ever quite right, or nobody really gives them enough credit, or it just seems like they just have to work harder than everyone else to get some kind of recognition. Like I said, it is a heavy influence. I don't want to say heavy energy, because I feel that gives it too much power. I'll just say that it's a heavy influence, because every single move that you are made, that they make rather, or that we as Capricorns make, is well thought out. And a lot of people will think that we are calculating and conniving, whereas we're really just trying to use discernment. We're quite old souls, so most of the times the moves that we make, especially when it comes to practical things that will benefit us later on in our years, it's really going to be well thought out. It's not just going to be something sprung, in the heat of the moment. It's definitely not going to be something like that, unless of course your aspects are, that crazy. I don't want to say, too impulsive, but I'm just going to say, if your aspects to Saturn are a bit, are a bit crazy. I think that's the only word that keeps on coming back to my mind. So if they are a bit, impulsive inducing, or inducing impulsivity, if that's even a word, then obviously the energy is going to play out differently. I think when it comes to astrology, we can be general as much as we can, but I think it's very important for us to note that aspects really do play the most important role, because it's the aspects that will paint out the bigger picture. it's the aspects, it's the, you know, the way that your chart is set up, it's where your planets are, where the degrees that the planets are in, because of course degrees also have an influence on how the energy also plays out. And an interesting fun fact that I actually read on social media about a week ago, or I think 2 weeks ago, and it's only coming to mind because of what we're actually talking about. And the meme was saying that your chart is actually very unique, and it would take another 25,000 years for a chart, for an individual chart to be repeated, basically. So, you know, birth charts are very, 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 very unique. And I mean, we all know in this realm we're not able to live 25,000 years, right? So really, I cannot urge anyone more than how I urge people in my, you know, in my podcast to just get into the knowledge and just start learning about themselves, because it will do them a whole world of good. So yes, as I was saying, every single move that is made by a Capricorn is well thought out. It's not just going to be sprung. They're not going to change overnight. It's definitely going to take time, which is also definitely a theme of Saturn, as well as the 10th house. So for example, you know, if a Capricorn has, you know, a crush on someone, they will immediately kind of be in denial or just not acknowledge it. But then after some time, they may feel like, okay, well, I've been thinking about this person for long enough. Perhaps there's, you know, some meaning behind it. And then they will imagine. So that the operative word here is imagine. They will imagine a potential relationship, or what that potential relationship would look like in the most realistic way. So they will imagine themselves being with this person, and how day-to-day life would be with this person, every week, every month, every year, etc., etc. So they will also think about things like whether they have money to even finance this relationship, where they're currently at in life, if they've managed to achieve some of the things that they've wanted to achieve in their life, to achieve some sort of balance. And even that's just enough to get them overwhelmed and just kind of unnecessarily riled up, because it's not like, you know, a Capricorn is being approached with marriage. It's not that kind of situation. It's more like, okay, we both like each other. I think maybe we should, you know, go out for coffee sometime, or go out for movies, or, you know, have a luncheon or dinner. It's really not that complicated. But I swear to you, without a word of a lie, Capricorns will be there like, oh my gosh, planning a wedding in just one thought. So it definitely does get overwhelming, and they just get overwhelmed by those thoughts. And these are just thoughts, like I have to reiterate it. And then eventually they just get to a point where they just close themselves off, because they realize that actually it's not even about the feelings or the emotions that they would have towards a certain person. It just would not at that particular time make sense for them to even pursue anything, and they would just withdraw completely and just, you know, go about growing what they feel is not balanced, or go about working towards what they need to achieve, or go about getting more money to sustain, you know, relationships. Because unfortunately in this day and age, relationships require money, and no matter how much we can try and, you know, tell ourselves that that's not the case, it definitely is the case. We do need a certain financial structure to, you know, enhance the activities that would take place in relationships. We've just gotten to that point now. COVID has kind of helped in a way, because now most of the things we do online, or we stay at home, but, you know, still for the practical little things like maybe going on vacations, or even just going out, that requires some sort of money. So you'll realize a lot of the time with earth signs, they're very practical. They're all about doing things. They are all about being like, okay, I want to do this. How do I get it done, practically speaking? What are the steps that I have to take That's why you'll find a lot of them have a lot of girls. A lot of them have achieved, material success because they are of the earth. So they know exactly what they need to do. They know they have to get a seed, which is the thought. They know they have to water, and they know they have to nurture that seed, which is taking care of it, and watering it. And then the only thing left for them to do is kind of watch it grow. But even in the process of watching that something grow, it still has to be, well taken care of and still checked on every now and then. So they basically know what needs to be done. They're the earth, so they know that the earth is quite fertile, and whatever seeds that they do have can really grow into something more. So, as you all know, Saturn represents restrictions, blockages, and limitations. It also has everything to do with the career. However, I think we need to remember that Saturn is a generational planet. So people who were born in the same year as you will pretty much have the same Saturn, regardless of where they were born. So, as I always say, the only difference, or rather the major difference between you and your peers, is that the aspects will determine how the energy of Saturn will play out in your life. So, for example, if you have Saturn in the 10th house, then one can immediately assume that you will have to work much harder than everybody else to just get a bit of recognition, but also that, this is where you will reap the most rewards. And also, I will say this again in case nobody noticed. I don't really like saying that planets are negative or positive. They just are. These are just energies. So it just depends on how you work with the energies. At the end of the day, there's really nothing that anybody can do about their natal charts. Like, it just is. If, your chart works out a specific way, then it just works out a specific way. And you just have to do your best at working with the energies. A lot of the times I don't really think it's fair for people, or astrologers, or for anyone talking about astrology in general, to keep dogging other people. Like I said, I think it's just more about working with the energies to your advantages, and then instead of trying to, degrade or belittle other people's energies, because honestly it's not their fault that they have those energies. They are obviously here for a purpose, and that is what they should be striving towards. How can we best help somebody with, for example, a malefic birth chart? How can we help them work with that birth chart to achieve the purpose that they meant to achieve here on this earth? So, like I said, I am aware that there is bad and good. However, I'm just saying that something can never be all bad. So it's appreciating the good and how it can help you on your journey that is the most important. So a lot of astrologers have only described like the one-dimensional side of Saturn, which is basically restriction, like I said, limitations, blockages. However, I think Saturn goes beyond that. I had mentioned before that it is a representation of that inner voice, that inner discerning voice that will help us make better choices. And this wisdom just comes from previous experiences, where it gives us an opportunity to just hone into our decision making and make the best possible decision. Saturn also helps us, store all of our experiences to enable us to make better decisions. I think I'm just repeating myself, but that really is the point essentially for me when it comes to Saturn. Saturn just allows the opportunity to eventually, or to just work through our karma, our struggles, our emotional blockages, our blockages in general, to reach a point where we can be positive and use our experiences to empower us exactly the same way that Pluto would. Because Pluto literally just comes in, it distorts whatever whatever house is transiting, and then it will cause a whole lot of chaos and destruction, and then it will rebuild anew. So it's basically like coming in, checking out a building, bulldozing that building, and then building something completely different, something completely new. So I would say to a certain degree that the energies are the same. They just go about the destruction in different ways. I think Saturn is also all about the hindsight and understanding that, okay, things are happening right now, but this is not really a permanent situation, this is not really a permanent problem, and that things will definitely change for the better. Was on TikTok on one of these days, and there was a tarot card reader that I was watching. Not sure what the tarot card reader's name was, but she made reference to us imagining our life as a movie, and that there are certain scenes, there are certain events that happen, and knowing that the movie has an impeccable ending that you can look forward to. And that is exactly what Saturn, or I feel like that is exactly the energy of Saturn. It just wants you to realize that in the grand scheme of things, everything will work out, and you just need to do your best to work through it, learn what you need to learn, and remember those lessons when you need it the most. So working with Saturn's energy is just realizing that eventually things will work out and work out for the best. Since Saturn represents time, it's important to realize that the only way around working with its energy is giving it time to heal, time to block, time to deal with karma, time to work, time to reap the rewards, time to play. Like I said, it's almost like having a really disciplined parent who just never allows any excuses, and just kept it moving no matter what was happening in their lives, or yours for that matter. So Saturn, which is quite strange, also rules discipline, and wherever Saturn is where you would need to practice some sort of discipline, where you need to work much harder, and where you basically just need to let karma play out. Saturn also rules the 10th house, and the 10th house is associated with your reputation, your achievements, the public eye. It's basically your legacy. This is where you really get realistic about how you deal with people, your relationships with people, and all of that good stuff. So another name for the 10th house is also called the midheaven, and it's how you get things done. As I said, how you're likely to act in the real world. It's also the impact that is shown in your 10th house. It's really an enduring impact on society. So it's not like the 4th house where you have an impact on your immediate surroundings or your immediate family. No. This is more like outside in the public. This is basically your what's that nice word that I'm looking for? There's a word that I'm looking for, but it's basically how you give back to society, how you benefit society, and this is like I said, your impact on society, whatever is shown in the 10th house is what is going to be long lasting and quite enduring. So it's a pretty big deal to kind of observe what is in your 10th house. The 10th house is also where you can observe what you came here to do. And of course, this is also determined by the aspects and the planets in your 10th house. And how that will be determined by the sign that is in your 10th house. So for example, if you have your 10th house in Gemini, then you would impact society perhaps through your communication skills. You could literally be an awesome writer, you could be a comedian, and overall just a great multitasker, and really just embody Gemini traits in how you go about dealing with the world. Or you could have it in Aquarius, and that just means that your biggest impact on society could be made through technology, social media, the internet, through teaching people, through your own experiences. Also, it would be a good idea to just kind of observe where the ruler of the sign of Saturn is, so you can create and paint that bigger picture for yourself for more understanding of oneself and what the 10th house is actually saying. Because like I always say, astrology is basically symbols communicating with each other, and it's up to us to kind of debunk that language. It's like hieroglyphics. We need to look at what the symbols are and attempt at reading or understanding those symbols. So it's the same as if you have Saturn in Gemini, you would have to check where Mercury is, or if you have Saturn in Aquarius, you would have to check where Uranus is to paint like a bigger picture of how this energy can be further activated. And there's just so much really to say about Saturn, but I just really want to keep it quite brief, because I think a lot of the times, a lot of astrologers, a lot of people that are interested in astrology have dwelled on the negative impacts of Saturn, on the negativity of Saturn, of how pessimistic and Capricorns or Saturnian people in general always claiming to be realistic when other people feel that they're being negative. So this is the type of energy that really has been given a bad rep, and people haven't really understood what the point of Saturn actually is in your chart. But I'll be one of the first people to definitely tell you that Saturn is the planet of wisdom. We all need Saturn. If we didn't have Saturn, then we literally would be people who didn't need parents, because we do need a certain level of guidance. That's why we have our own intuition. And I'm not saying that everybody has parents. I'm just saying that we do need sort of like an inner guidance. We do need an inner compass to be like, okay, you want to do this, what are the things that you have to do to achieve it? We do need that energy, because at the end of the day, we can't just go out on a whim and just do whatever we want. So Saturn helps us put things into perspective. Saturn helps us put things into structure. It basically helps, it helps us to structure things. It helps us to give us discipline. It helps us to work really, really hard despite the annoying oddballs we might face, the challenges that we might face. But like I said, it's definitely a planet that operates on hindsight, where you can be like, oh my gosh, in hindsight, I'm actually glad I went through all of those experiences. I'm actually glad I went through all of those challenges, because now I can look forward and I can be like, this actually really helped me, and should I ever face this situation again, I'll know exactly what to do. Or even should somebody close to me, a friend, a partner, a family member, or a loved one, should anybody go through this type of situation, or even your children, you'd be the best person to be able to advise them on how you dealt with a particular situation and how that worked out for you. And the one thing that I'm always encouraging on my podcast is that we engage in these conversations and we try and help each other by sharing our experiences, because I believe that's how we learn. That's how we're all able to be like, actually, I read somewhere on social media or on the internet that somebody was going through this particular situation and this is how they solved it. I also want to bring another example into play here. We actually had a situation whereby our geyser burst, and it was just complete mayhem, and our ceiling was basically going to zero. And my mom was stressing about it, but she wasn't stressing to a point where she was like, at her wit's end. I think she was more like, okay, these people are not answering my phone, and the people that weren't answering her call were the insurance people. And she had been through a similar situation like this before, but at that time she didn't really even know what to do, until a friend of hers her colleague actually rather, advised her, if you have a problem like that, then you're paying a bond, right? You're paying you're paying a bond, and that includes insurance for things like these. So at the time she didn't know, and she had already spoken to somebody who would potentially come and fix her ceiling, So when she spoke to her colleague, she was like, oh my gosh, actually let me jump on that immediately. And she phoned the bank that's handling her bond repayments, and they basically told her everything that she needed to know. And this is exactly a Saturn type of example. This is like a real life challenge that if she hadn't gone through it before, she wouldn't have known in this case how to have dealt with it. Because now when we dealt with the geyser bursting, we were just like, oh, okay, well, it burst, and then we knew exactly who to call, we knew exactly what to do, and it was sorted out within a matter of weeks, and we have a brand new ceiling, a brand new geyser, and everything is back to normal and life is great. So that is what Saturn is all about. It's basically learning under the heat, learning under pressure, learning through circumstances that would otherwise just annoy you or hurt you or really cause you a lot of pain and mental anguish and all of those negative things that may happen to a person. However, Saturn really is just about teaching through time, and it's about teaching through pain so that we can become the best version of ourselves. And I think that's the most beautiful way that I can explain Saturn energy. And to each and every Capricorn or Saturn dominant person or 10th houser, that's basically the message that I want to leave you with here. I know you're always going through text, or you're going through books, or you're going through blog posts, and you're always reading, oh my god, being a Capricorn is so hard. We always go through the most. When are we eventually going to get to that point where we can relax and really enjoy life? And trust me, it's definitely coming, but you just have to stick it out. You just have to make sure you remain above water and you're doing the best that you can to make the most of your situations. I think that's just basically it. Just make the most of your situations. I know you dread that job that you're probably in right now, but make the best of it. Take some really cool pictures, have some really interesting conversations with your colleagues, with people around you, get into doing things that you really like to do, so that you don't remain stagnant or in that energy, or even waste time thinking too much about a particular thing, because of course, as we always know, your thoughts do create your reality. So if you need to be thinking about anything, you should be thinking about how amazing it's going to be feeling when you do get to that point where you feel like, okay, I've reached a certain level of success now and life is pretty darn good. So and of course, I have to also mention the fact that once you have overcome your challenges and you start reaping your rewards, definitely be aware. You always need to be aware of the fact that at any time anything can change. So it's very important to make sure that you make the most out of every experience and really appreciate the experiences that you do have, so that you can deal with the challenges that are going to come in life. Because we don't, like I said, life is not a destination. We're not just going to get to a point where, okay, we have enough money now and all of our troubles are going to go away. No, we are going to deal with bigger devils. We're going to deal with bigger challenges. So said devils. And in the tarot deck, Saturn is actually the devil. But yes, we're definitely going to deal with bigger, more challenging circumstances. So let's just make sure that our focus is on learning the lessons and appreciating what life has to offer and appreciating our challenges, because obviously if we are going through the worst right now, that means we are definitely being prepared for the best. Think of it as a diamond in the rough, a diamond going through this tedious heat process, and it's being molded and buffed and shined, and and then eventually a diamond is the prettiest thing, the most beautiful thing, the most precious thing for everybody to just kind of enjoy. So think of it like that. But obviously you're not a diamond, in the practical sense of being a diamond, but you have to go through certain challenges in order to be of value. And that's really the message that I have pertaining to Saturn's energy. So I am officially done with the planet series. In my next video, I will be discussing the houses from the first house right through to the 12th house, so that we can understand the energies much, much better. Because I also believe that the houses have, different energies to offer as well. Just because the first house is ruled by Aries does not mean that it is, Aries dominant. Of course, the characteristics will definitely be the same, but, there's always more to offer when it comes to the houses. So I'll be talking about that. And on that note, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Show me some love if you'd like, and subscribe to my channel. Again, your time spent is much appreciated. Till next time, you know what you do, so keep doing what you do. Peace, love, and most of all light. I'm out.